Welcome back to Don's Life. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be continuing the carbon fiber commitment with the Corvette C8 behind me. We are installing something I didn't even really know existed, and that's these carbon fiber fender trim accents. Let's go. So what do I mean by carbon fiber commitment? Well, we've done quite a bit of carbon fiber to my Corvette C8 so far. We have the carbon fiber diffuser strakes, we have the carbon fiber filler panel, we have the carbon fiber 5VM side skirts, we have the carbon fiber boomerang, we have the carbon fiber door handle, we have the carbon fiber replacement mirror caps, and we have a lip that's going to be installed in a future video. And that brings us to these guys here. So this fender trim, these accents, I've got two of them on the table because I have two installed on the other side there. I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what I was up against before filming the video. They are going to be shipped to you in a box like this if you pick yourself up some. These have been sent over by Extreme Online Store. They partnered with me to show you how to install these. Something to point out right before the install is I have wheel spacers installed. So my wheels come out 20 millimeters. Gives it more of a flush look, not completely flush, but a little more flush. So keep that in mind that once we install these, because they're going to poke out just right here, about the width of like a finger and a half, and then they'll come down to the mud flap and go to the front. Same with the other side. They are going to make the body stick out a little more. So my body is now going to stick out a little bit outside of the sidewall of the tire. So we'll see what that looks like, but that's why we do these reviews and these installs. So not only do you get educated on how to do it, you'll know if it's something that you want to do. So let's take a closer look at the product itself. Remember, I have two here because I've installed two. I also have paint protection film that has already been put on all across the carbon fiber to protect it. If you are going to look at doing paint protection film, it's only this edge here that's exposed. I do have paint protection film that goes all the way to the edges. So as you watch me install this, this would probably normally get some scrapes and scratches as you put it into the fender well there. Mine will get scrapes and scratches on the paint protection film. Having the paint protection film on here, because it's a rubbery substance, actually makes it harder to install. It's not as slippery or easy to glide in behind the fender. I found that when I was doing the other side. It was incredibly sticky. So I'm actually going to remove the mud flaps because I found that it was easier to take the tension off of the inner liner, and the mud flaps add some tension. So if I can take the mud flaps off to relieve that tension, it's going to make the install for me go better because I have kind of a stickier, more frictioned approach having this paint protection film on there. Now this install is easier with the wheels off. We're not going to do that. We're going to turn the front wheel, do this one. You could jack it up a little bit to give yourself some room. I think my lift might be up right now. Doesn't really matter if it's up or down. I have enough room to work with. Now, a big thing to keep in mind if you have a side skirt like I do, depending on the brand and depending on its fitment here at the back, you may run into some trimming that's needed on your new fender trim because of this here. But I did the other side already. I did not need the trim. I'm satisfied with how it fits here. It's not perfect, but you see this sharp angle. All that stuff kind of meets up. Now, if you don't have side skirts, then you shouldn't have to do any modification. Now you can tell which of these is front and back. The back has 3 holes for mounting, and the front has 4 holes. You'll find 4 screws up there. You'll find 3 screws up here. We're going to start with the front, taking those 4 screws out, and this mud flap. Now in the way of tools, if you're just going to release the liner in the front here, then all you need is a T15 screwdriver. I have a little bit here that I can move from my drill to a little ratchet. This thing's really handy. Or you might have an angle adapter like this that connects to your drill, and you can work in tight spaces like that. If you're going to take off the mud flap, and these are the aftermarket Extreme Online Store mud flaps. They stick out a little farther, the XL version, help protect stone chips from hitting the side of your vehicle. You might need some needle nose pliers. You'll need a 7mm socket to undo the bolt that's under here. And then these are just clips that are holding it in, pretty standard trim clips. They can get bent pretty easily. So that's why I like to have the pliers so I can bend back some of the tabs. So when I go to put this back in, it's nice and tight. You can see how simple that was. Before we take off the rear mud flap, I'm going to see if we can try and fish this in there. Remember, mine's stickier, it grabs because of the paint protection film, but we might as well try and install it here. So you want it to butt up here at the top of the mud flap, right here with this end. And then this piece here sits in behind the fender liner. And then it wraps around to the front where you're going to secure it with the original holes and screws. So let's give it a shot. Maybe it'll be easier than the other side. You gotta pull on the fender a little bit. Here's a good spot to grab. That'll pull it away from the liner, just where there's this gap between this back plate. Well, look at that, it actually slid in there pretty good. It's touching, which is what we want. Comes around here. Now we just want to make sure that these holes line up. And from what I can tell, they do. Excellent. So we should be able to just put these 4 screws in, and then that one will be done. I'm tightening with a screwdriver or by hand because I don't want to over tighten them and I want to get a feel for how well it's grabbing. Sometimes with a drill you don't get that. There we go. So here's a first person view on fitment. It's actually fitting quite nicely. No real panel gaps. And that's the main thing. You don't want it to look awkward or clunky. I kind of wish that these did extend and replace the mud flaps, but they are 2 separate installations. I think we can get these in carbon fibers. Maybe I'll have to do that down the road. Mine are carbon flash. I wrapped them in black vinyl just to protect them. Okay, let's move on to the rear. Little tighter quarters here, same MO. We're going to take out 3 screws instead of 4. Just like the front, we're going to roll the dice. We are not going to take the mud flap off. We're going to see if we can fit it by starting here, butt it up against the top of the mud flap, tucking it in all the way along. What I want you to know though is the fender liner on this is a little different than the front. It's kind of vacant in this area, so it doesn't have to tuck behind anything. But then right about here, so a little bit in front of the hub, you'll feel the carpet shows up in this area. So I found when I did the other side, after I fitted the trim in there, I used a pick tool just to pull the carpet back and make sure it laid down nice and flat and it wasn't kind of pushed or compressed. Pay attention to that. Pretty easy to do. You can just pull it back from here, but I found the pick tool made it a little easier for me. So let's try and install this without taking the mud flap off. And remember, we have this little cap here and it actually fits on like this. So it kind of goes on top. So once this is in, this goes on there as a finishing cap. And if it's anything like the other side, I'm not going to have to trim it or delete it. I think we can still use it. But let's start with putting this on. So I'm starting right at the back, feeling with my fingers where the inside liner is, and I'm kind of pushing the liner back with my fingers just to get it in there. Then here's easy because there's no liner, but then the liner starts right here. And here's where it might have a harder time getting in behind or want a bunch. So that's on there, but I can feel it's bunched up a little bit. So I'll pull that back once I make sure everything's lined up. But because this is touching, it doesn't look like I have to take the mud flap off. This never happens, by the way. Usually the part that I'm filming is the one where I struggle, and the thing that I do off camera goes seamlessly. In this case, it's been the opposite. So now we want to make sure that our holes line up. First one's right here. Probably hard to tell on camera, but it does. So we should be able to tighten this up and not forget this little plate. It goes like this. So that's how the finish will be. So let's attach everything. Probably get the drill in there. Maybe I'll use that to get them started, but I want to firm them up with the ratchet so I don't over tighten anything and like crack the epoxy or the resin that's holding this together. Just got it started. Well, I think that went pretty well. Not recognizing any panel gaps, so the fitment's really, really good. Goes right to the top of the mud flap, all the way around. Again, this isn't perfect down here, but we know why. It's because we have this side skirt, so there's a little bit of material from the side skirt that compresses, pushes up against this cap. So that's why I have not a perfect fitment right there, but that's more my issue because of this. So I can live with that. I don't think I need to trim anything. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm really happy this is covered in paint protection film. That's something I'd recommend with any of these pieces. Put paint protection film on them, protect them, save them from any scratches and wear, and use good quality paint protection film so it doesn't prematurely yellow. You want something that has some UV protection in it. Well, I think it's time that we get it out in the sun and have a closer look, and then we can wrap this video up. Well, there we go. Now we have the wide body Corvette C8 here on the channel. Well, no, not really. It's just a wider Corvette C8. Definitely unique. Definitely the only one around here that's going to have these installed on them, which is what I like to do. I like to set myself apart. I know of another one in the city that's wrapped the whole thing all satin black, so it's completely murdered out. So I'm going a different way. And to prove that, I actually have a bit of a preview here for you. For those that are watching this, I have some colored paint protection film that will be going on the C8 in the coming weeks. It was supposed to be installed for the rally that I attended, actually 2 rallies. So if you want to see what the rally experience is like, definitely check out that video. In the meantime, if you want to look at all the different options that you can get from Extreme Online Store, check out their website. They have so many items for so many sports cars. And when it comes to the world of carbon fiber, I find that their pricing is palatable. So that's one of the reasons why I've shopped with them, and I've also partnered with them to do a bunch of demonstrations on how to install their products. So with all that said, if you like today's video, hit that like button. Please consider subscribing. We'll talk to you next time.